All right, so I'm going to do this video really quickly that talks about Bremerton and Port Orchard. I had at least one person ask about Bremerton and Port Orchard. What are my thoughts about them? I briefly went into Bremerton. I thought it was a really nice area. However, people have said crime is an issue there. When you look around Bremerton, it doesn't look that way, but I guess looks can be deceiving. When you look at Bremerton, it ranks, and of course I'm going to niche.com, and I'm not getting sponsored by Niche or Niche or whatever you want to call them, but again, when I look through some of their metrics based on other places that I kind of have a better feel for, they seem to be kind of spot on. So some of their stuff is a little outdated because here things change so quickly. Such as the price of a home, for example, changes very quickly, whereas in other areas it doesn't change as fast. So when you look at Bremerton, it's ranked number 261 out of the best places to live in Washington. Okay, so if you look at all the cities, Bremerton is ranked at 261. The overall grade that they give them is a B. Now here's the thing, it ranks lower than what Tacoma would be just in general. Okay, when it comes to public schools, they give them a C+. Okay, when it comes to housing and crime and safety, they give them a C. So when people talk about the fact that crime is kind of prevalent there, and you hear that, you know, a lot of people mention that. I didn't see it, but again, you hear a lot of people mention that. You go to different blogs, you kind of hear people talk about it. That's something that one should probably look into. Housing is going to be a C in most places because it's kind of hard to find here, and the prices, you know, kind of high and that type of thing. So I kind of expect that. It gives it a B- when it talks about good for families. Nightlife, it gives it an A-, and diversity, it gives it an A. Now, again, I can't really vouch for any of that other than say probably the housing is about right because it's kind of hard to find housing in most places. I knew of someone that was there and they didn't really care for it as much. I don't know how accurate this is because again, things change so quickly in this area. It says the median home value is about $178,000. Which is close to the national at $178,600. Theirs is $178,300. Median rent is $870 and the national is at $928. Of course, those values are incorrect because the entire area has shifted upward in terms of the values of homes and the amount it costs to rent. So that I would say is probably inaccurate. When it comes to the feel of the area, they considered it suburban feel, but they also said Tacoma's suburban feel. I don't really think that's true for Tacoma, but I do think that's true for Bremerton. It claims that there's about 58% of the people rent versus 42% of the people own. Now, I don't know how true any of that actually is or how accurate or up to date that is. When we look at Port Orchard, all of these they consider to be a suburb of Seattle, even though that may not be the case because they were talking about how DuPont was a suburb of Seattle when it's more or less kind of a suburb of Tacoma, but kind of. I can see that. Port Orchard is literally identical in terms of its rankings as Bremerton. When you look at this, it basically says that Port Orchard gets an overall B-. Public schools get a C+, housing gets a C+, and crime and safety get a C+. So it kind of gives you an idea. The schools there, not sure how good they are overall, but based on Niche or niche.com, they're claiming that that is where they rank public school, housing, and crime and safety. Again, we understand the housing part. It's B- when it talks about good for families, an A- for nightlife, and an A- for diversity. It's a city of about 13,000. And when we look at this, it's flipped. The amount of people who rent are 41%, and then the people who own are 59% according to this. The home values in Port Orchard based on this are a lot higher than you would see in Bremerton or even in some of the other places around there. But it's showing 251,200 as of what this is claiming, while the national is 178,600. And then the median rent at 1,048, while the national is about 928. Again, all of that is much higher than what this is claiming. I can tell you that right now. When you talk about the median. Now, could you find something for that price or lower? Sure, absolutely. But the median in this area has went up quite a bit. I'm not going to say it's in the 300s in that area, but it probably is batting pretty close to it. So overall, when it comes to Port Orchard and Bremerton, both cities, which, you know, now have a quicker access to Seattle, because with Bremerton, they now have the fast ferry, if you will. So they can get to Seattle a lot faster than they could on the old legacy ferries that we have that go all over the place. You know, Port Orchard gets a B minus, and then Bremerton gets a B. So Port Orchard's a little bit better. It's going to be a little bit more expensive as well. And Tacoma, to give you a kind of point of reference, Tacoma gets a B plus. So it actually outranks both cities overall. Now, when you want to look at a place like Gig Harbor, for example, which again is one of those places that a lot of people are trying to move to, it gets an A minus. And that's the reason why a lot of people want to move to it. However, people, excuse me, however, this site gives it crime and safety a C plus as well. Housing a C, public schools B plus, A minus, good for families, B plus for diversity, and A minus for nightlife. And that's talking about Gig Harbor. So it gets an A minus. It's ranked higher than Tacoma overall. But when you look at crime and safety, it's pretty much kind of dead even with Tacoma overall. Housing, again, is going to be a C. I don't think there's going to be a place here that you can find where you're not going to see a C grade for housing, just because it's difficult. Seattle is ranked at an A plus. For example, it's number 25 as the best cities in Washington. Its crime and safety is also a C. So when people want to basically say that Tacoma's this rough place, Seattle also has a C grade. It's got an A in diversity, an A in nightlife, an A minus in public schools, a C in housing, of course, A good for families. So it gives you an idea. And then when we want to look at Bellevue, so that people will have that, if I can find it, hold on one second. Bellevue is ranked at an A plus, and it has nothing that's low at all. Everything's above a B minus. So that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure you hit like and subscribe. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.